TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations.
Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem, and in today's top stories. Israeli Foreign Minister Yisrael Katz notes that the only way for Israel to delay its ground offensive into the Gazan border town of Rafah would be for Hamas to accept a hostage release deal. Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas calls on the international community to recognize the Palestinian state, irrespective of reality on the ground. Egypt insinuates that it would assist the Palestinian population in the event of an Israeli offensive into Rafah. IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi approved and discussed plans with Southern Command Commanding Officer Major General Yaron Finkelman for the continuation of the war versus the Islamist Hamas and its affiliated terror groups in the Gaza Strip. The approved IDF plans, which have also been approved by Jerusalem's War Cabinet, include operational preparations for a ground offensive into the border town of Rafah. Consequently, the Islamist Hamas, weary of the nearing operation against its last and remaining stronghold, published videos showing 3 dual Israeli-American nationals in captivity as part of its psychological war efforts to thwart an Israeli offensive.
Would simply point you to the fact that the War Cabinet meets right now to discuss how to destroy the last vestiges, the last quarter of Hamas's battalions in Rafah and elsewhere in Gaza. They're meeting right now. They're feeling the pressure, and what a surprise, they're starting to make pseudo-conciliatory remarks. We're not going to fall for it. I don't think anyone in the world would fall for it.
The Israeli government spokesperson further noted that while Hamas attempts to convince the international community about its reinvigorated desire to negotiate a hostage release deal, both Washington and Jerusalem are clear-eyed about the Islamist group's deceptive measures.
I would simply point you to the fact, to Secretary of State Blinken's comments, the US Secretary of State, where he points the blame completely and solely at the feet of Hamas. They walk away from any potential deal, even though Israel has really gone to extreme efforts to try and get our people home. It is Hamas which walks away.
It is important to highlight that Israeli Foreign Minister Yisrael Katz, in an interview with domestic Keshet 12 News, acknowledged that the only way for the international community to delay Israel's ground offensive into Rafah would be for Hamas to release all hostages.
The release of the hostages is the top priority for us, the female and male hostages. If there is a deal, we will do a deal. Even if it means putting off plans for Rafah? Yes, to put off the planned operation in Rafah to step up the deal. If there will be a deal, we will halt the operation. We will do whatever is required to bring the hostages back. How close are we to the deal? Without a change in the means of war in which soldiers sacrificed themselves and fell or got injured, and where the reservists participated and the entire nation got mobilized, meaning that we will do everything that is possible to do. How close are we, this evening, Minister of the Cabinet, to a hostage deal or operation in Rafah? We are making all the preparations for the operation in Rafah because that is what needs to be done, but I'd hope that there will be a deal.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, ahead of his travel to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the purpose of participating at a summit of the World Economic Forum and the Gulf Cooperation Council distinctly, emphasized that he supports anti-Israel protests on college campuses throughout the United States, irrespective of voiced support for the protesters by Hamas and the Ayatollah regime in Tehran. In parallel, Washington's top diplomat also seized the opportunity during his visit to China to blame the Islamist Hamas for bearing full responsibility for failed diplomatic efforts to secure a hostage release deal.
And in our own country, it's a hallmark of our democracy that our citizens make known their views, their concerns, their anger at any given time. And I think that reflects the the strength of the country, the strength of democracy. Now, as I've also said before, this could be over tomorrow. It could have been over yesterday. It could have been over months ago. If Hamas had put down its weapons, stopped hiding behind civilians, released the hostages, and surrendered. But of course, it has chosen not to do that. And it is also notable that there is silence about Hamas. It's as if it wasn't even part of the story. But, as I've also said repeatedly, the way Israel goes about ensuring that October 7th never happens again matters profoundly, and we're working every day to try to minimize the damage that's done to innocent people and to make sure that they have the assistance and support that they need.
Secretary Blinken, who also highlighted Washington's hope for Beijing to assert its own influence over Iran to prevent tensions from escalating further throughout the Middle East, went on to travel to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where he attended a session of the World Economic Forum, followed by a foreign ministerial summit of the Gulf Cooperation Council.
Is that there really are two paths forward for the region as a whole. One, ridden with division, with destruction, with violence, with permanent insecurity. The other, greater integration, greater security, greater peace. I think the meeting today shows that many more of us want to pursue that affirmative path. And I'm grateful to our colleagues from the BCC for working in partnership to advance in that direction.
Similar to sentiments voiced by members of the Gulf Cooperation Council, both the prime ministers of Jordan and Egypt, during a Q&A session at the World Economic Forum, emphasized their perceived need to ensure that at the culmination of any negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians, the internationally aspired two-state solution would be implemented.
The overall objective for all of us, that any kind of negotiation end up with the two-state solution, this crisis will continue. And it will never stop. And it will harm everybody in this region. So we have to work very hard together, I think, the whole world, to really try to stop first this kind of unhuman, of course, attacks on Gaza, but we have to work for the more, long-term objective of having the two-state solution.
The Egyptian Prime Minister went on to voice Cairo's objection to Israel's looming offensive into Rafah, yet, in contrast to circulating reports, he insinuated that Egypt would stand by to assist the Palestinian population were to cross the border into Egyptian territory.
Of course, this might entail, another displacement of those people who might seek any kind of safe place. So maybe they would, put a pressure to cross the border to Egypt. And of course, as Egyptian government, we are, from the humanitarian point of view, we will be ready, to provide all kinds of support to the Palestinians.
While Egypt does not rule out a scenario of temporary displacement of the Palestinian population, as Israel remains steadfast in its obligation to eradicate the Islamist Hamas, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, who received a seemingly warm welcome by the World Economic Forum, stressed the need to apply significant pressure on the United States, since it is regarded as the only nation that can frustrate Israel's intentions vis-à-vis Hamas and Rafah.
And here I say that what's happening now in Gaza and what will happen in the coming few days is what Israel will do with attacking Rafah, because all the Palestinians from Gaza are gathered in Rafah. And it's only one small strike that would force them to flee the Gaza Strip. And here the biggest catastrophe in the history of the Palestinian people would then happen. We hope that Israel stop doing this attack. And we call on the United States of America to ask Israel to not carry on the Rafah attack, because America is the only country able to prevent Israel from committing this crime.
President Abbas, whose popularity plummeted in recent years to record lows, and as such lost territorial control over large parts of the so-called West Bank, with chief focus on northern Samaria, went on to call upon the international community to recognize a Palestinian state under his leadership, pledging to negotiate with Israel the functionality and boundaries of such an aspired state, irrespective of reality on the ground. Nevertheless, senior Biden administration officials have relayed a clear message to the Palestinian leadership, which demands for a fundamental reform of the Palestinian Authority, which is contaminated by both deep-rooted corruption and support for terror, and to ensure that the Islamist Hamas will never reclaim any role in a future Palestinian state. Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to encourage you, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. Moreover, if you're blessed by our programs, which are exclusively donation-based and as such broadcast entirely free of charge, please consider making a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. I'm Jonathan Essen, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.